if you would, Mr. Anderson, if you would introduce yourself, turn your mic on, just tell us for the record who you are and who you represent.
Great, thank you.
No, you're not.
Oh,
there you go.
Thank you, Chairman Yeager, Vice Chair Dickerson, Vice Chair Briggs, and Senators. My name is Thomas Anderson. I've been at UT, it'll be 15 years in August. I'm a buyer in facilities services at UT Knoxville. So I purchase materials and supplies for the utility shop, specifically HVAC, electrical, and plumbing. I'm a member of United Campus Workers, and I work for the people of the great state of Tennessee, and I'm proud of that. And though I work at UT Knoxville, and that's where most of my experience comes from, I want to acknowledge the full breadth and scope of our public systems of higher education. Our campuses from Memphis to Clarksville, Knoxville to Murfreesboro, and all across this great state, all with facilities workers who, like me, will be impacted by this decision. And for clarity and for the record, I am here on my own time. I'm not an official spokesperson for the University of Tennessee or for the Tennessee Board of Regents. I'm here to speak on my behalf, on behalf of my coworkers and all the affected workers, campus workers statewide. And here again, I'd like to thank the committee for showing the leadership and allowing the voice of a state facilities worker to be heard. A lot has been said about the governor's facilities management outsourcing process, although not much by them. A lot of promises have been made. The administration staff, including literally some of the highest paid state employees, one member of that group makes $28,000 a month for 4 days a week work. They've claimed a private contractor can do a cheaper job with no loss of service, no job cuts, no benefit cuts, no other cuts. Everything's going to be better, but it'll cost less. And there's no real evidence to back that. And that's a sales job that I can't buy. Usually when someone makes you a promise that sounds too good to be true, it usually is. And I know that's certainly the case in East Tennessee and across the state. And as one of your existing facilities management professionals, and as members of this committee have already acknowledged, current state employees on our campuses, state parks, and all of the properties that we manage, throughout the state, we are professionals. I believe it's appropriate to share with you how this facilities outsourcing would affect me, my family, my coworkers, and communities all across the state. And one thing I can promise you in terms of possible impact, in terms of what's at stake for myself and thousands of other Tennesseans like me, is everything is at stake, our careers and our livelihoods and our families. So it's very impactful across the state. In terms of most direct impact, it's not unlikely that I may lose my job. Many of my coworkers would likely lose my job, as Mr. Stamps evidenced in the contract in Texas A&M, which they've held as a model. And whether this happens in the short term or in the near future down the line when the issues are less in the public eye, in my long livelihood, hopefully it doesn't really matter. The insurance benefits that I have would change, could cause very difficult interruptions in service with doctors, dentists, and other health care for myself, my wife, my family. The ability to put my children through school, through a good education, will become extremely challenged, and my coworkers are all in a very similar situation. Many are worse, some far worse than myself. There are many that work 2 to 3 jobs already to make ends meet. But what this job does, it provides not just a paycheck, but stability in terms of insurance, in terms of having that base set of pay. The ability for workers, many who couldn't go or chose not to go to higher education themselves to get a degree, it gives them and us the ability to put our children through and get a good university or technical education. And even without a final decision, this process has already affected my coworkers and myself. Morale is very low. We've been losing employees due to uncertainty. And if I'm being honest, I have to lay blame on secretive nature of the whole process. They've refused to speak about it, and when asked in public, they just repeat, quote, "No decisions have been made." Stress is extremely high. We've all had very many sleepless nights. I've never had stomach issues in my life, and I've got ulcers now. And it's put a strain on home, on future planning. I know coworkers who plan to buy homes, to upgrade their vehicle, to do other things around the house and their place, and those plans get put on hold because we don't know what's going to happen. You can't plan for the future, regardless of whatever the promises have been made. And to speak on those kind of vague promises, there are two parts to dealing with that as an affected worker, as a public employee. When you get no information and you're just told, don't worry, in a situation like that, you know that any promises given can change at any time. The other part is that over time things change. Take as example the food service outsourcing at UTK with Aramark. At times during the process when job protections were talked about, there's a reference to those made in that contract, but those protections are in reality very ephemeral. That company has a financial interest in getting folks to cease being higher ed employees, so they offer small raises, they offer sweetheart deals to entice folks to move over and become employees of that private company. Once that happens, all of those protections go. They often discover that the benefits are not adequate or not as well, lost wages, and in a very few years they're gone. Alternatively, folks who stay on as higher ed employees find themselves in a more and more difficult position. It's an unfriendly environment. Often you work in a two-tier system where the former higher ed employees are making better wages and have better benefits than their coworkers. And bosses often have a financial motivation to push them out. Also, working in the industry we all interact with contractors and contracts in some way or another in various different levels. As a buyer, I work with them probably more closely than many. And one of the things that we know is until the contract is written and signed and put into place, there aren't any guarantees. It's wide open. And we know enough to be wary of a salesman who tells us that that's not the case. And I want to say I appreciate Senator Briggs' question at a previous hearing about why don't we follow the best practices that Mr. Cowles laid out in a number of his presentations. And the short answer is that we already do implement all of those best practices at UTK, and many of the best practices we can, given budget and financial restraints across the state. We could go line by line and thank Mr. Stamps and TSCA did a great job pointing out a lot of the high points of that. But we can go check off the certifications that existing facilities management professionals have, existing state employees, from MTSU to Austin Peay, Jackson State to UT Chattanooga. We can talk about the local and regional businesses and suppliers that our institutions utilize, small businesses that may not be in communities without this work, without the public employees. Some of those companies and businesses are new. Some have been around and doing business with higher education since the 1940s and before. The stability of public employees is what allows those relationships to be maintained over such a long time. And that doesn't even touch on the times existing facilities management folks go above and beyond. Research in an office in a humanities building that was saved from a water leak by a custodian who knew the office that was under the leak. A custodian who identified a gas leak while night classes were in session at Dyersburg State. There are numerous examples. I could probably talk all day about it. But at UT just this past year, and there was a group of plumbers who answered a service call at Morrell Hall, one of the dorms on campus, for a bathroom and plumbing issue. While they were working, there was a power outage in the building, so they lost all power to the building. Rather than stop work, go home and come back later when the power was up, they went to their truck and their vehicles and they went to the shop. They got portable lights and portable generators for power, and they went back in that dorm and they finished the work. And they did that because they knew our students, our community, needed that work done. And that kind of work ethic goes beyond just being accountable. We are accountable to a great many folks, not just our campus community and administrators, you as legislators, and the media and the public. We are answerable and accountable to all of those folks. But those are real people who do this real work. And I promise you that if this outsourcing goes forward, those are real people who will hurt as a consequence. You know, and promises that it will be different this time is difficult to hear and swallow, and this is not our first rodeo. You know, we've been outsourced, we've had outsourced custodial services and other services at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. We no longer have those services outsourced, and there are a list of reasons for that, and the fact that they did not save money is one of the key ones. When past work has been contracted out, one of the things that we find is that contractors often use contractor grade, what we would consider substandard materials. Now, it's not that these materials are unsafe or below code or that there's a problem like that, but many of our institutions and our buildings are 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And in order to support that, the equipment we need needs to be able to take a lot of use and a long extended use. So often we end up going behind that work and replacing the substandard or the cheaper machines that cost more in efficiency and repairs with higher quality equipment that we know save the university, community, and the state money long term. Similarly, if this push goes forward and more facilities are outsourced, someone down the line is going to have to go behind and clean that up, and at what cost? You know, there's tremendous institutional knowledge about these buildings, about their work history, about what repairs, updates, tweaks, all of the different things that we've done over the years. And even if down the line, some years from now, and it's clear that a deal that is too good to be true is in fact too good to be true, you know, what kind of harm has this done or would this do in the interim to our communities, the existing small businesses, and the current public servants and our families? Those are my biggest concerns. Personally, it's my ability to support my family, and not just as a paycheck, but to give them the education they need to support their futures, the stability of the job, and quite honestly, the pride of being a public servant, the pride of being a public employee in the higher education community. That's a specific decision I made, and many of my coworkers made, to do, and it's a career I've dedicated myself to doing. But beyond the personal, professionally, I know what it takes, and I know our people know what it takes to support our campuses, to support our state. And I know no matter how good or how knowledgeable any expert, any facilities professional may be, they would be coming to a campus they know nothing about, having to support a set of buildings, a community of faculty and staff and students, a campus that they know nothing about. They would have to come to us, the current facilities, existing facilities professionals, for that very information. And that's information that it's garnered over years of experience. It can't be put into a one-week orientation. It can't be passed along that way. So quite frankly, just the transition period would be devastating to our campuses currently and for a long term. I know at UT Knoxville, we worked very hard over the past years with the drive to become a top 25 research school, and our facilities reorganization to make our campus one that both we can be proud of, our campus community can be proud of, and that professors, educational professionals, students, researchers want to come and become a part of, and quality facilities is a key part of that. I know that this is true institution after institution, campus after campus all across the state. And with budget reductions we've experienced since 2008, this has meant becoming really creative. You know, we as state employees, as higher employees, have become experts at doing more with less.
You have about a minute.
Okay, thank you. Management professionals, existing facilities management professionals can identify the problems and the improvements we need and deal with those internally. But contracted employees don't do more with less. They do what they're contracted to do, and anything extra you have to pay more for. That's just the way contracts work. In closing, I want to stress that nobody is more invested in our campuses and our communities than we are. My boss hasn't missed a UT Knoxville home football game in 30 years. That kind of dedication, that kind of being a part of the community, you can't find, you can't buy or pay for. You're not going to find that in an outsourced, out-of-state company because it's already here. It's in the current public servants who go above and beyond. And Leader Norris, I would venture to wager that if your office was on one of my campuses, we would put light switches in for you. And finally, you know, it's our folks who come in during snowstorms. We sleep on cots across campus to make sure that the campuses are de-iced, the snow is scooped, and the students are safe, and the campus is prepared for when the rest of the community comes in to continue with education. And I just want to close with saying, with real humility and sincerity, I want to thank the committee and the committee chairman for leadership. It means a great deal to me and to all of us to finally have, after about 8 months since the public became aware of this plan, that a facilities worker has finally been allowed the chance to speak and to give our side as dedicated public employees. Indeed, this committee created the space for us to finally have a chance to speak and share our voice. Hope that you continue to do that and include us going forward. So thank you again, and entertain any questions.
Do we have any questions? All right, yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know the hour is late, but since reference was made to the light switch, I would add that as of this week, since last week, I have not been able to get a burned out light bulb.
Leader, I thought I was the only one on the bulb part.
Well, and if I can sort of on that, very briefly, when we were here for our lobby day a few weeks ago, you know, many of our facilities coworkers were here, and a lot of them, it was their first time in the Capitol in a very long time, and just walking the halls. And we, as professionals, saw a great many things that if those were seen in the University Center or the Andy Holt Tower or the Baker Center, some of our key, very highly public trafficked institutions, there would be write-ups, and there would be, yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, members, remember, we are having a meeting tomorrow. We will meet at noon tomorrow to consider the matters that were sent to us yesterday relative to annexation. We will meet then. Then next Tuesday at our regular time, on Tuesday, our regular meeting